start discussion on the so I'll guide you the anti-money laundering and compliance in financial crime detections in knowledge. So please like this, like and subscribe my channel. Start. So first, what objections? It's financing. We define some regulations. That the objection monitor will be the system that will reduce objections and we that objection to the financial intelligence unit. So this analyzing the pattern and trade and behavior of the illicit person. So while he is doing money laundering and the terrorist finance, I separately creating new video posted and like and subscribe my channel. Then I'll create a what is the core objective of transaction? Transaction monitoring it help financial institution detect and abuse of financial institutions uses for the criminal processes. In the criminal process, many criminals need the financial systems and of their fund. So the transaction monitoring is a process to detect such kind of the transaction, identify the such kind of the patterns in that or the behavior in that the process. So regulatory driver for the transaction monitoring is key component of financial compliance with anti-money laundering and counter financing and the regulation in India like financial intelligence unit of India and action task force, FinTech and FCA are they have provided the guidance to the worldwide entity. They create the rules and regulations and then the transaction monitoring system. So the transaction monitoring system is an IT system. It is a software that automates the software that define rules and advanced critical to analyze the transaction in real time for near real time getting alert to the suspicious identify the if you find there is suspicious transactions, then system that will identify and that will be the inform the operation, inform the teams who are working in the AML and CFT department. So let's the next slide is a trade landscape for the financial crime. So I'll detail make this the transaction monitoring system designed to detect and flag activity related to the various financial crime. So what type of the financial crime? What is the key concept in that financial crime? And red flag in a transaction monitoring tool. So let's first what is the money laundering? In money laundering, where is the dirty money? The launder, the dirty money, invest the dirty money, convert into the clean money. That's covered in the money laundering. So the process of distinguishing the origin of illegally obtained money so that it appear from the legitimated source. So the red flag in transaction monitoring should be the money laundering structuring, uh, breaking up the large cash deposit withdrawal into the smaller amount by the regulating and the thresholds. So the investor will breaking that keep it small and then create the regulatory such kind of thesis activity, the legitimated source. And then the terrorist finance. In terrorist financing, the criminal will use the provision or collection of funds we use for the terrorist act. Some keep in mind the terrorist act, this kind of fund they will use. The fund can from both legal and illegal sources. There is a notified source. They will earn from the legal source or illegal source, but they have they use that for the terrorist attack or the terrorist act. Okay. So the red flag and transaction monitoring system will identify or detect like the rapid movement of funds, quick inflow and outflow with no clear economic purpose and often high risk jurisdictions. Then next one is a fraud. Fraud is intentional fraud means the intentional deception for personal again or damage another individual institutions. That's the damage this thing and the account takeover OTO, a sudden massive change in transaction type, location, this is used. That thing all comes under the fraud. There is the fraudulent transactions to gain more money from the financial institution and the trade-based money laundering. It's a very, very important. We also call it as a TBML, so trade-based money laundering, which representing the price and quantity or the quality of import and export move value abroad. So to clean the money means create the misfill where the quantity or the amount, all these things incorrectly represent an inconsistent trade invoice, transfer the inconsistency and with the stand the business trade activity. So these all things are done by criminal in the financial crime like money laundering, credit financing, fraud, or the trade-based laundering. So let's move on the next slide. That is a very important the transaction process, the transaction monitoring process, how the process will happen for the transaction monitoring. So first, this is a sequential process. I'll explain you how the transaction monitoring work for the data integration, regulatory reporting, how the operation team or the anti-money laundering risk officer will inform the regulatory body like a financial intelligence units, FATF. Okay, these bodies regulate these things. So first stage is the data ingression and integration, then the rule scenario engine analysis, and then the alert generation. Then alert will be generated if the suspicious activity will identify. Then the investigation and case management will happen, and then finally reporting and regulatory filing will done against that customer. So, the data integrations. So, collect all the customers and transaction data despite the deposits, wire transfer, credit card, loan payment, deposits amount, the withdrawal, credit card payment from various source of system. So bank will collect all this transaction data and integrate with the KYC and CDC. KYC means know your customer and CDD means customer due diligence. So data built on customer risk profile. So CRP, customer risk profile. So data will be create on the customer risk profile and baseline of normal behavior of the customer. So consider the baseline or the benchmark for the normal behavior of customer. If that breach, so they can do the further analysis on such customer. So rule scenario engine analysis. Then they will move to the next step is the rule scenario engine analysis. The transaction monitoring system applied the predefined rules and the behavior models, and they will feed the business logic to that system against the transaction stream. For example, like such kind of the transaction, the daily cash deposit exceed the $10,000 or multiple transactions from unrelated parties, rapid fund movement, or the high deposit in the student account, or someone try to make account in the student ID and deposit high, and continuously inflow and outflow of the funds, multiple location transaction. So such kind of the scenarios they are created, and the such scenario is created by the financial intelligence units or the financial action task force to create such scenarios, or the bank itself creates such scenarios by doing the statistical tuning of the previous scenarios. Okay, so that will be the work in that, and then the finally alert generation when a transaction or a series of transactions violated a rule or deviate the significance from the customer risk profile, the system will generate the alerts if the transaction pattern or the transaction things will matches with the business logic and the business rule. Then the system will generate alert or detect the red flag for the such transaction and such. And in that process, the significant challenge is mandatory managing is important, like fails positive legitimated activity or flag a suspicious activities. So that's one of the alert generation processes to reduce the false positive things. It's a very significant and very challenging task. And then we will do in the investigation and case management will done further process. So the compliance analyst investigation or the CML officer or the CML chief officer will do review and the alert of underlying transaction or the customer data to analyze the customer data behavior, their transactions pattern, and then they come to some conclusions. Is that the fails positive or it's fraudulent transaction? Need to report for the regulators like the FinTech, the US, or the financial action task for the financial intelligence units of such kind of transactions will done in the reporting and the regulatory filing. If the activities confirm the suspicious, that means the true positive, the formal report of suspicious activity, then created the suspicious activity report, and the suspicious transactions report is filled with the relevant financial intelligence data to send them. And if it is the fails positive, then the close case is a close and documented. It's a fail positive, then case is closed and documented why this case is created. So for the record and do the audit trial process for such kind of things. Let's move on the key component of the transaction monitoring system. It's a very important, guys, if you are working in the financial crime or the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing things. So you need to understand the key components of transaction monitoring things. Also, business analysts must understand the functional building block of the system, where that system is created. So data lake and data warehouse, tool engine, behavior profiling engine, alert generation, workflow, case management system, and the reporting analytics model. So that's are the key components of the transaction monitoring system. So data lake and warehouse, the centralized consolidated source of all the transactions or account or the customer master data must be clean, complete, and timely to feed the transaction monitoring system. So data lake and data warehouse is a thing from where we can collect the data of all the transactions, customers, their accounts, and their risk profile, and then feed the system, and then we will run the tool engine or the run that the system to analyze the fraudulent transaction on the basis of business rule or business logic or the regulatory compliance to predict the fraud transaction or to generate the red alert if the such kind of transaction will happen. So the core component of that holds to execute the program monitor scenario rules. It is the logic brain of the systems. Then the behavioral profiling engine. So system will do the statistical modeling, machine learning modeling, mathematical modeling to establish the dynamic baseline of expected customer activity and typical transaction size and frequency and geography to identify is that transaction is fraudulent or not fraudulent. And then alert generation workflow, create an alert record and process into the case management system. So if the some transaction pattern or the customer behavior will matches with the rules which we define in the system, or the transaction is beyond the rules, then the system will generate alert of such kind of transaction, and they will proceed such kind of transaction in the case management system. This we call as a CMS, case management system, a dedicated system that where analysts investigate and document the finding, communication, and document all these things and manage the end-to-end life cycle of the alerts. So create the alerts, say to the financial intelligence units, taking feedback and taking the action on that customer. Is that account will be put in the dormant or closed, or if that account will continue the customer to do the such kind of transaction, is providing the crucial for audit trail. So reporting and analytics model used for regulatory reports. So suspicious activity report or the suspicious transactions report will be created to report that the things to the regulator in monitoring system and performance metrics, alert volume, fails positive rate, closure time, and identify the new risk typologies for the such kind of the transaction. So reporting and analytics model will there it is a key components for TMS. So let's move on the role of business analyst while in the transaction monitoring system. The business analyst is a bridge between the compliance team, IT team, and vendor and the development for these things. So the BA will do the requirement illustration activity, rule scenario engine activity, data mapping activity, user acceptance testing, and the system of optimization activity. So in each activity, what are the deliverable and where the business analyst need to be focused while he doing the activity like requirement initiation. In that time, the BA should translating the complex and evolving the anti-money laundering regulations requirements like FATF guidelines or the business intelligence unit guideline or the or the government guidelines related to the AML and CFT and risk typology. New money laundering methods will created and the business logic will created and the technical system requirements. What are the requirement from the business to convert into the technical system requirement? Rule and the scenario design will be the part of business analyst. So collaborate with the anti-money laundering officers to define and test and document the logic and threshold for new monitoring rules. For example, creating the business requirement document, functional requirement document for execute and excessive currency exchange rule to define the scenarios of such kind of the transaction monitoring systems, and then the data mapping and quality ensure all required data to feed the sender, receiver, amount, country, person are accurately mapped to source system to the transaction monitoring system and data models. So where we do the garbage in and garbage out to map the data accurate to the system so system can predict the accurate and the user acceptance testing. So designing and executing the test cases to validate that the new rules or the system changes function as expected or the currently identify the both true positive and minimal false positive thing. So do the UAT testing. So to define that the testing and the as per the expectation, the system will detect the patterns or the identify the suspicious transaction. So system optimization, then analyzing the system performance matrix, fails positive rules, and recommending the changes such as the recalibration threshold, and then adopting new technology like AML or the doing the statistical techniques. So to optimize the system and system should be the the future perspective or the system should currently rules or regulation which is defined by the regulator. So I did create that such kind of the rules in the system. So let's move on the next slide. That is emerging trade in artificial intelligence and machine learning in the transaction monitoring. The future of transaction monitoring is moving beyond the rigid rules, or it will be, the AIML techniques will create itself, use the supervised learning, so unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, or deep learning technique to identify the pattern of the customer behavior or the customer transactions, and on the basis of rule or on the basis of the logics which we feed to the AIML techniques to predict the fraudulent transaction. So machine learning for anomaly detection, so detect the suspicious activity that doesn't fit any predefined rule by identifying the substantial deviation from the worst and learned normal states. So BMS understand how the integrate and the test machine learning perform the data and quality and ensuring the proper models governors for the anomaly detection and the artificial intelligence and machine learning to reduce the fails positive reduction fail positive reduction. So sophisticated model analyze and thousands of data will be point to assign the risk score to alert and auto close and disprioritizing the low risk ones. So BA must track the fails positive rate or the core business in matrix and the propose model tuning to reduce it there, improving the analysis efficiency and to reduce the false positive. So BA should must track the false positive rate in the system and identify the system patterns and update the code and gather the requirement. So explain the AI, okay, how the AI will work. So then in that case, we will provide the clear human understanding reasons why AI will understand the generate an alert and high risk for due diligence, sudden large international transfer and high risk countries, which is more than 500% of the customer behavior. So we will do understand such patterns in that with using the AML techniques, and BA must ensure the system provide the significant explanatory and analysis to justify or create the suspicious activity report filing to the regular. So that's the AML techniques we will use in the anti-money laundering systems or the transaction monitoring system. So the key challenges for the business analyst while he's working on the transaction monitoring system to understand the common pitfall and crucial for the success. So uh, first one is the false positive data quality, and then the evolving criminal typology and the regulatory scrutiny. So first one is a false positive, the biggest operational challenge. Many fails alert over the analyst and leading to fatigue, fictive and higher the risk for missing and genuine and case the alerts saturations. So be a solution to continuous rule calibration and leveraging the money laundering or do the continuous tuning to to reduce the fails positive and increase the true positive rates of the suspicious transaction. And the data quality, so inconsistent, incomplete, and fraudulent data across the different legacy system makes the holistic and significant customer for of the customer impossible. So the BA will provide solution like championing the data linkage project and the defining the structured data quality to understand the data pattern, data behavior, to doing the AIML techniques to identify the suspicious transaction. Or he should know how the core banking system or the transaction system will integrating with the transaction monitoring system. It is and the Excel based upload or using the AI or the API application programming interface to detect the suspicious activity in that customers. And the regulatory screenality, and then the regulator require the fully documented and auditable and effective programs and penalties for non-compliance or service. So BA will ensure that the solution is the case management system and maintain the implication and unchangeable audit trail for the investigable decisions and regulatory cleaning. So these are the challenges field. So BA need to be very careful and understand the system requirements and work accordingly. So next move on the next slide, that the summary key takeaway for the business analyst related to the transaction monitoring system and its compliance, which is the primary focus on the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. So business analysts should understand that domain very well to do in the transaction monitoring system, and the system is effective and tied to the quality of data and ability to distinguish the true trade from the false positive, and why intelligence tools and models will created for to identify such kind of transaction. The BA role is critical in bringing the gap between the evolving regulatory needs and business requirements and technical system implementations to convert the business requirement into the technical requirement in the system requirement from the to create the business requirement document to create the functional specification document. These are the work or the key takeaway from that slide. And the industry is rapidly moving toward the artificial AI ML techniques to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the transaction monitoring system, and the system with using the AML technique with less human interaction with the system and to detect the fraudulent transaction. So these are the slides, guys. Thank you for attending my sessions. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe my channel. That will motivate me to create more videos. Or if you want to some more related to the AI ML techniques which is created for the transaction monitoring system, so please do comment on that. Or if you like to understand the suspicious activity report or the suspicious transactions report or the cash transactions report, which the financial institution will send to the financial intelligence, so I'll be created such kind of videos. And I'll also created, if you want to request for proposal videos. So thanks once again to to listening these videos. Thanks guys.